Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight at our Collins City Hall. If you have any questions, by all means, don't hesitate to give us a call, 234-6282, and we will answer whatever questions you might have. Anyway, I've got some great guests with me tonight. I'm really excited about my guests tonight. I've got with me Councilmember Mike Orr. Thank you, Mike, for being here.
Thank you.
Mike made a trip back from vacation to make sure he was on the show tonight, and so I appreciate that. It seems like it's never convenient, but yeah, you always do a great job, so I appreciate you being here. We also have with us our one of our police captains, Cliff Kelly. It's great to see you. Thank you.
Hey, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
It's exciting to me. This is a kind of an exciting time of year, if you ask me. We get to go back to school. We've got kids that are going back to school now, and it's definitely an exciting time for all of them, from kindergarten up through, I believe, high school, up through their senior year of high school, and then even into college. Little nerves for those freshmen going into college, and so it's an exciting time of year. But with all that excitement, sometimes it brings some major issues, and so I thought I'd have you come onto the show and kind of talk a little bit about school zones and some school safety and some of the things that we're doing to be proactive in that, and maybe we'll see where it goes from there.
Okay.
But first of all, school zones. What are we doing there?
Well, with people being back in school, it means traffic. Okay, there's increased traffic in the school areas, and we have the school zones in front of just about every school here in the city. And school zones, just as a reminder, are 20 miles per hour through the school zones. There are certain areas where we've upgraded the school zone signs.
The flashing lights.
With the flashing lights when during the hours that the kids are in school to help remind the drivers. And beyond that, we have our officers out every day where we have school in session, checking those school zones and keeping the speeds low, because we've got a lot of kids that we have increased vehicle traffic, but also increased pedestrian traffic. Kids are walking to school, and again, like you said, they're excited to be back in school. They've got a whole bunch of other things that they're thinking about that, and we don't want them to have to be in danger crossing the streets and walking in their school zone. So we have the officers out there to monitor those school zones and to help remind people, because a lot of times all it takes is to see a patrol car out in the school zones or in any of the speed zones, and to give a reminder. But they also will stop cars and help give the little more forceful reminder with the citation if they need to. So we're just asking people to mind the school zones and to make sure that that they keep in mind that we've got the bunch of kids out there that are and their safety is paramount.
Well, I think it's important to also mention what we've done with the school zones this year. We've actually reduced the hours of the school zone, which I think is very important. Last year, if you remember, the school zones went from, I believe, 7:30 to 5:30 in the evening, and now they're 7:30 to 4.
Right.
And so that's also, that helps, I think. But what's really important is it's your responsibility as a driver to be paying attention to the speed limit, for one, and for two, to be paying attention to pedestrians. You know very well the kids are not paying attention. And I mean that from kindergarten on. In fact, the kindergartners are probably paying more attention than the college students going to school, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And so
and we do have crosswalks that we've got to worry about as well. not only the school zones, but the crosswalks. And we've instituted or participated in a few activities with Subway and some other sponsors that if on certain days, and one of those days is just last week, we had officers monitoring the kids for safety, and any of them that they saw that were using the safety tools and checking both ways and before they cross and using the crosswalks, and then they could get stopped by an officer but given a sandwich card.
Seems like they were given a card for a free sandwich is what they were.
Yeah, for a free sandwich at Subway, and that's just one of the promotions that was done, and I'm sure there are others that will be participating in throughout the school year.
Well, I think it's appropriate to give a plug to Subway for that. I mean, what a great way to reach out and make sure the kids are focusing on the crosswalks, because sometimes as kids, we just wander across the street. We don't pay attention to the crosswalk, and so that's a good reminder for parents out there to make sure your kids are using the crosswalks.
Right, and that's a great promotion, and you never know when, as a kid, you never know when those promotions are happening. So you might get stopped by an officer and say, "Hey, thank you for being safe, and here's a sandwich card or something for a free gift or something of that nature." So for the kids, it's a good incentive for them to always follow the traffic rules.
Well, I think it's important for people to really consider and think about, we might be in a hurry to get to work, but you're going to get really slowed down if you hit a pedestrian.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's going to affect you the rest of your life. And so I would hope that people would start to really pay attention to the pedestrians, for sure in the school zones, if nothing else, in the school zones.
Yeah, in the school zones, but we also got the crosswalks and pedestrian areas down by the university, where we notoriously have problems with drivers not stopping. So we'll do enforcement down there with our traffic unit, and there are certain tools that they can use, whether it's to have people down walking in the area that are helping with the traffic enforcement to see if people are stopping, or just monitoring the crosswalks very closely. And if they see that somebody's not stopped, they can take enforcement action. But we'd like people to do it without the enforcement, to just see, hey, I've got somebody in the crosswalk, I need to stop them. Because like you said, if they hit somebody, then they can be in a hurry all they want, but if they hit somebody, it's going to slow down their day, and they have to live with that for the rest of their life. And
so, what is the law state about crosswalks? I noticed and it was a great statement you made there that brought this to this, is that a lot of time people don't stop, even though there are people at the fringe of the crosswalk.
Okay.
The
law states, okay, that somebody has to be actively in the sidewalk. If they're in a curb cut area that reduces down to the crosswalk, that's essentially, or they're in the gutter area, that they are in the crosswalk. If they're still on the sidewalk and it's a built-up sidewalk, okay, they're not in the crosswalk. But if they're preparing to cross and they've stepped down into the road area to cross, they do have the right of way, and cars must stop. Now, they have to have an opportunity. Somebody in a vehicle has to have an opportunity to stop. If somebody steps down into the crosswalk and the vehicle hasn't had an opportunity to stop and to see them, and they're within, could be 50, 60 feet, and they just don't have an opportunity to stop, then they can get through that area. But vehicles that have an opportunity to stop, that have the distance to stop, and they just don't, those are where we take the enforcement action. So if they're stepped into the roadway and they're preparing to cross in the crosswalk, then then they have the right of way.
Well, and I think that's a good reminder. But again, you have to be aware at all times, because a lot of children, no matter what age, even some adult children, tend to maybe cross where they will want to. And you find people coming out from between automobiles, and you just got to, I think the awareness is a big factor out there.
And just as a reminder, pedestrians, they only have the right of way if they're in a crosswalk. If they're darting out from between cars or things like that, then they don't have the right of way. They need to practice the pedestrian safety, but if they are in a crosswalk, they do have the right of way.
You say they have the right of way, but that right of way doesn't go very far with that you're getting hit by a car.
Right.
So as a pedestrian, you still have the responsibility.
Yes,
You
to
probably should
avoid
check
if
it
they
out.
can.
Don't just stare at your smartphone as you're sending a text message or something and wander across the street.
Absolutely. You still have the responsibility to check for vehicles and not put yourself in a bad situation.
Just because you have the right of way doesn't mean you're going to make it to the other side.
No, and I think the younger people, I mean, I've watched them kind of play who's going first, because they'll look at you and they'll try to decide who's going to make the first move, because they don't want to get out in front of you. They, kindergarten, first grade, third grade. Seems like the older we get, the more bulletproof we think we are. That's sometimes.
Up to a point.
Yeah, up to a point.
Then we realize that, it hurts.
Yeah, it does. So.
Well, and we might just add, especially down around the university area, if you are going southbound on 4th Street, for example, and a car next to you is coming to a stop, you probably should start stopping as well.
Yes. Yeah,
because there's probably a pedestrian. If as a pedestrian, one car stops, you probably ought to pay attention to that other side of the road coming down the road, because sometimes people aren't stopping when they should.
Yeah, and that should be a cue for you, like you said, because there's probably somebody in the crosswalk. So just go ahead and stop, check it out, and let the pedestrian cross, and then you get on your way. And it's usually just a few seconds anyway that you're stopped, and then you can get on your way.
Now, when a pedestrian walks across the street, and because he's cleared your lane, now can you take off, or do you have to wait until they get to the other side onto the sidewalk?
Once they've cleared your lane, usually you can start to move, but you also need to make sure there's not another pedestrian coming, where you followed that pedestrian, that's halfway across the street. Well, look back to see if somebody else is starting, because they see that traffic is stopped. That's happened in the past, where they didn't see somebody else because they were tracking the one person that went across, and I can go now. Well, you need to check, make sure somebody else isn't starting, or that somebody isn't crossing from the other side as well.
Sure.
Because they can cross them both ways. And so it's just a better policy to wait until the total crosswalk is clear before you resume.
What if you don't have a crosswalk painted in the street?
Okay, if it's not painted in the street and it's at an intersection is just is the same as a crosswalk. Now, if you have a crosswalk on one side of the intersection and not on the other, you're better off to cross in the crosswalk. But at an intersection of 2 or more streets, that's always has the same.
You as a driver have the same responsibility. If somebody's there waiting to cross, you need to stop, let them cross.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Do all schools within those Pocatello Chubbuck District 25 school district have crossing guards? Or
I'm not sure that all of them do. Many of the elementary schools do. If they don't have the flashing lights, I think all of the elementary age
I think it's elementary,
schools
but
do.
I don't think it's middle school.
Middle school and high school don't, but all of the elementary schools do.
But there
They
are
have
some-
volunteers that go and are crossing guards.
There are some schools, though, like Syringa, for example, the kids are crossing over Highline at the crosswalk at the four-way stop.
Right.
They're crossing at Highline there, and then they're walking down, and then there's a crossing guard in front of the school to cross.
Griffith or whatever.
Yeah, on Griffith, I think it is, to cross over into the school grounds, but there's not
Right.
one up on Highline.
No, they're just right adjacent to the school.
Yeah.
And so on Highline and El Rancho, you know, they may have to cross the street 2 or 3 times before they get to the crossing guard. So talking about pedestrian safety and crossing safety with your children, you know, is a good thing to get them prepared for school, especially elementary age children, and maybe go and walk with them for the first little while until they understand how to get across the street and what to do, what to look for.
That's a good point. Parents, please be involved.
Yes, be involved
With your children and
with the kids.
Help them out.
Don't just send them off there thinking they know what to do.
Right.
Well, they may come home on a different bus. I mean, I've had that happen
That does
over
happen.
the years.
That's true.
Buses. Couple questions with buses. One, if a bus is stopped at a railroad crossing, they turn their flashing lights on. If it's a 2-lane road, are you supposed to stop with the bus?
You're not required to, as you can safely pass them. And what they are doing is fulfilling their responsibility to ensure that there's not a train coming. If they have their stop arm out, that means they're dropping children off, so you do need to stop. And usually it'll be their yellow flashers
Right.
at railroad stops. In order for you to have to stop, it has to be their red flashers and their stop arm. However, if they're in a drop zone for the children and they put their yellow lights on, it means they're preparing to put out the stop arm and everything. So it's a good policy not to try to race by while they have their yellow lights on, but to stop, because again, it takes a few seconds, and a few seconds of your time versus the life of a child is,
Absolutely.
you know, is pretty easy call.
Yeah, I would think it would be. What if you're headed the other direction? You're on a one-way street, and you've got 2 lanes going one way and 2 lanes coming back the other way. They've got their stop arm out and stuff, headed the other direction. Is it 1 lane you need to stop, or do you need to stop on all 4 lanes?
I would say that's a good policy to stop on all 4. The furthest one outside, it's a little more difficult. I don't think that that's required, just the inside lane. But again, because typically they won't cross clear across a 4 lane. They would drop them on the one side, and then they'd have to go to a crosswalk to cross.
But what you're really saying, though, is just stop.
Just stop.
You see a
Yeah.
bus stop there, the stop arm's out.
Yeah.
Just stop.
Just stop is the best policy.
Don't.
And again, because it's you weigh the life of a child versus a few seconds
Sure.
of your time.
Well,
And
it definitely
surely
makes
that's-
sense to.
it would be an easy call. And we enforce those the stop arm violations consistently with the school district, and we'll continue to do that.
Well, that's a good thing. But yeah, it's just not worth it. There's no question. Well, let's talk a little bit about bike safety.
Okay.
What can you give us about bike safety, and why is that important for us to pay attention to?
Well, first off, with bike safety, wear a helmet when you're biking, because again, when you're riding in traffic, when you're riding in the hills, you never know what's gonna come up to cause a potential wreck. I mean, there are experienced riders that that crash on their bikes. And if you have your head protected, the rest of your body can pretty much heal if you have a broken arm or something. But if you get a traumatic brain injury from a fall from a bicycle, that's much more difficult to heal from, if at all. I mean, so that's the first thing. And then knowing the traffic rules for bikes. I mean, with bikes, you gotta ride with traffic, and you have to follow a lot of the same rules as cars when you're in the road. And
If there's a bike lane, you should be in that bike
yes,
lane.
yeah, and use bike lanes if there is one. If not, you need to be, as far as you can over to the right-hand side of the road in order to let the faster traffic pass. Don't take up, if you're on a busy stretch of road and there's two or more, don't take up the whole lane. Move over into single file so the faster traffic can move around you. And then understand and know your surroundings, that there are a lot of cars around, and use your signals for turns and things of that nature. So, and it's good to always get a refresher on those, signaling right-hand, left-hand turns, stops, those things to help warn cars that are that you may be traveling with, that you're going to be making a move one way or the other. And then always, look around to see what's around you before you make that move.
So there again, you might have the right to be on the road, and the legal presence there is perfectly fine. You might have that right, but there again, it doesn't go very far when you've got a Big Mac truck over the top of you.
Right, because the fact that you had a right of way maybe doesn't mean a whole lot with you're laid up in the
That's
hospital or worse.
Exactly.
So
bike safety is important now. It's also important for drivers to pay attention to bikers.
to bikes, right?
To see them, make sure they see what's happening. That's on your pedal bike and also your motorcycle. I know
Yes.
Councilman Orr likes to ride his Harley Davidson every now and again, and I'm willing to bet he's had more than one close call because somebody just doesn't see it. Just look
Right.
twice.
Right, and again, with that, helmet is paramount with your motorcycles. We have experienced riders. We have experienced riders with the police department that have crashed. Some for things that aren't their fault, that are other drivers that they have to react to. Sometimes, the conditions of the road cause you to, gravel is one thing that's taken down many experienced riders just because it's slippery.
Yeah.
Summertime is construction time
Yes.
in Idaho, and
So wearing a helmet is paramount because speeds are greater on motorcycles, and you can't control a fall off of a motorcycle if you get pitched off. And again, the other parts of your body will heal a lot easier than a brain injury, and where you could be killed. And on a motorcycle, the likelihood on a fall is, if you're not wearing a helmet and you hit your head, is that you would be killed.
well, I think the bottom line here, the story is stay alert, whether you're in an automobile or on a bicycle, motorcycle, be alert, your surroundings you mentioned, because even a severe case of road rash is painful.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Little
it
time to
is.
heal up, so,
It does.
slow down, be alert,
Broken bones. Be alert, and follow at least the basic rules, safety rules for whichever vehicle you happen to be traveling on.
Well, it's important. I think I worry a lot about the motorcycles because they go so fast, and I don't think drivers in cars are paying attention to them, and half the time it's because we're busy doing so many other things. We're distracted by everything out there, and we need to remember we're really, truly in kind of a missile. It just depends on how fast we're going, is the speed of that missile and what's going to happen with it. And if you're trying to send a text message, which you shouldn't be, if you're trying to talk on the phone, which you really shouldn't be, you're trying to eat lunch really fast before you get back to work. I mean, all those things are just, we do them all the time. Changing the radio station, it takes your mind off of what you're doing, and it only takes a split second. And it's and it can have a lifelong effect on you. And so I think people need to really consider those things. And for some reason, we think we can get across town in 5 minutes, no matter what time of day or night it is. And by dang, I'm going to make it happen. So just watch me.
Yeah.
And we don't really want to give tickets out, but
No, absolutely. It's not our goal. Our goal is the voluntary compliance with the traffic laws, and because it makes it safer for everybody that's traveling on the road, and that's been proven.
absolutely.
Yeah. You know, as a member of the city council, but even more important to me as a citizen of Pocatello, as we wrap this up, I'd like to express my appreciation to all the officers of the Pocatello Police Department. You do a great job. I've had the pleasure to ride along with many of the officers, and I've seen and observed nothing but professionalism and patience beyond my ability by them in many cases. So I want to say thank you to them.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that, and I'll pass that along.
Absolutely, that feeling's mutual. And thank you, Mike, for saying that. Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you being here with us tonight. A half hour's up. You don't realize how fast it goes until you're in the middle of it, and so we appreciate your time coming tonight. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me.
Come back.
I will.
Oops. Yeah, sure. Let's go.
Moms everywhere are finding ways to keep kids active and healthy.
Works every time.
Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov.
Honey, how many times have I told you you can't put grocery sacks in the recycle bin? They go back to the grocery store. Let's see what else you forgot. Cardboard's fine. Cereal boxes without the cereal box liner. Newspaper, that's fine. Pizza boxes without the greasy mess. Mr. Pepperoni Head. Plastic bottles, that's fine. I'm sure that's because I put it by the back door. But really? Bubble wrap? Bread bags? They cannot go in there. Shredded paper? Are you kidding me? Glass jars? That's another no-no. Honey, a furnace filter?
Well,
This can't go in here. You are a piece of work. Styrofoam? Complete no-no.
how was I supposed to know?
Well, you could put your computer to some good use and look it up on the city website. They list everything that can go in here and what can't. Oh, honey!
Yes, dear.
It's garbage day.
Oh.
Good evening, and thank you for staying with us after the break. We've got a new guest with us. I still have Councilmember Orr, and I appreciate his time. here as well, but we've got our new HR director, Heather Buchanan. Thank you so much for staying late tonight.
No problem.
We didn't tell you, well, I assumed that you knew when you took the job it was really truly more than a 9-to-5 job. But
Yeah, I expected the 9 to 5. Not really, but this kind of threw me.
that's right. That's right. Anyway, I just thought it would be good to introduce you to the community and let them get to know who you are, kind of what you do and stuff. And so with that, I'll just turn some time over to you to introduce yourself to everybody, and then we'll go from there.
So my name's Heather Buchanan. I've been with the city since April. I started as an HR consultant over compensation and training. And we've had a lot going on in compensation especially, so it's kind of been a trial by fire. Our old director retired in June. I found out she was retiring on my first day, so
That's timing,
yeah,
right?
I was like, wow, I've already ran her off and I haven't even been
I
here.
haven't been here long enough to do that.
I took on the director role in early August, so we're not quite a month in. We're a very small department. There's 5 of us when we're fully staffed, but we haven't been fully staffed since June. So we're very happy that we're hiring someone next week they'll start, so that's great. HR is a very internal department to the city. We don't interact a lot with citizens, but we interact every day with employees who do the bulk of the interaction with our customers. So our customer base is different than most city employees. Unless you're applying for a job, you're probably not going to be talking to HR. We do once in a while field concerns or complaints from citizens, but they usually route those through the departments.
So how did you get into HR? When you were a little girl, did you say, I just want to be an HR director someday?
No, not really. So I graduated from ISU with my master's in public administration. And HR is very interesting because managing people, it's such an expensive resource. People don't realize how much money you actually spend on personnel. So that's very interesting because it's also one of the hardest things to manage. It's constantly changing. There's no real rhyme or reason behind trends that you see. Just the wind can shift everyone's focus. So after I graduated, I was working at the college. I got a full-time position at AMI. I was doing stock option administration, which I knew absolutely nothing about, but that was very interesting. I got into HR computer systems pretty heavy at that point. From AMI, I was there through the transition to ON. I was part of the onboarding team that helped combine AMI into the ON systems. And then I went back to the college and I helped implement the new computer system that they're currently running now. From there, I spent some time at home with my kids. Then I actually went back to ISU. And then I moved over here.
So it sounds like almost like you did everything you could to stay out of HR, but it just kept pulling you back.
It did.
into
It's just there's so many areas of HR that people don't realize. You have compensation, benefits, training, recruiting, onboarding new employees. It's very expensive to onboard an employee. For example, when we hire a new police officer, that's well over $50,000 that we're spending in training alone, let alone if they go into specialty things like SWAT or drug dog. All of those things are very expensive. So if you can keep employees, long-term employees, your return on investment, it's a horrible way to talk about people, but it is true. It's very expensive to train them. And institutional knowledge that you lose when people leave a company or leave the city, you cannot recover. So it's something you have to deal with all the time. Right now, we're looking at a lot of retirements in the next 5 years. It's an unbelievable amount of work to shift a department to a new manager. It's a new mindset, new approaches, different ways of just handling basic things. So you have to train your management staff and your employees on how to deal with those change.
So is that why you do in HR? Is that what HR does, kind of, is train employees, train managers? Tell me a little bit about what HR does as a whole. You breeze past compensation and stuff like that, but as a whole, what do you do?
So as a whole, our job is to make sure that employees are treated equitably. So across the board, from managers to part-time employees, you have all different levels, especially with the city. We have so many outlying departments that not everyone's housed within one location. You want to make sure that your employees and your managers have the tools to do their job and do them safely. It's not just a fact that, your garbage gets picked up every Friday morning at 8 a.m. It's the mechanic that put the time in on that truck. It's the manager who made sure we had it staffed. It's the office person who answers the phone to schedule an extra pickup. It's the person that, is sick, so we had to have coverage. So it's a lot of managing just different pieces. We don't actually build a product. We don't actually deliver a service. It's all behind the scenes. A lot of people think of HR as a disciplinary function, and that's such a small portion of what we do. Compensation alone, people say, well, you don't pay me enough. Well, I understand, but it has to be equitable across the board. Just because your department is funded differently doesn't mean I can pay your admin more than I can pay an admin, say, in street, because they're not an enterprise fund. So you have to make sure that your employees are being treated equally regardless of where they're housed. So we spend a lot of time doing that. Employees, when they retire, they have lots of questions. So you have to help them through a benefits package, how your benefits work, how we can help you get the information you need. So we spend a lot of time just answering questions and helping direct employees.
Making sure that they know what is available for them. When you hire an employee, I'm sure there's a process you go through there as well.
Yeah, onboarding a new employee, it's hard because a lot of times people start in a position and they don't actually understand what their benefits include. So they're usually very excited when they see what the city benefits are. We have very good benefits here, and we work very hard to keep those. The cost of offering a benefits package like we do is very high. So we have to make sure that we're getting our employees in on time, that they're getting the full services that they need. So benefits is actually more of a personal item for most employees than pay. If you increase someone's pay, they're excited about it for a couple weeks. Then it just becomes the norm. You increase their benefits package and they're excited about it long term because it's this new ongoing benefit that they get that they'll see constant return on. So that is one of the hardest things with new employees, is just educating them as to how we do things. But then we have all the policies and procedures, anywhere from how you use your computer to what you do in a city vehicle, what you do as a city representative, and then how you deliver your services as a department. Those are all things that we try to cover.
Just make sure everybody's on the same page, going the right direction.
Yep.
Now, when you do have an employee that is not happy, I should say, do they come to you, or do they go to their supervisor, or how do you get involved in that?
So I have a very open door policy. Any employee can come in. I'm more than happy to sit down and talk to them. Usually before I address a concern, I want to talk to the employee's manager to make sure that they're aware. The role of HR is not to manage your employees for you. We're there to make it easier for you to do so. So unless the employee's direct complaint is against the manager, we always pull in their supervisor so that they can help us get a better understanding of what's going on in their department.
And that's pretty important for the whole entire department to...
It is. If you cut off a part of your department and they don't know what's going on, you're not getting effective communication, and then you kind of are stumbling along in the dark trying to figure out what exactly is going on.
And we have a couple of unions in our city. How do you get involved with the unions, or are you involved with the unions?
So this is my first experience with unions, and I literally started and then got pushed into negotiations with both police and fire. It's just like any other relationship that you have. It's built on trust. So both parties have to be actively involved in the discussions for them to actually go anywhere. So police is unionized, and so are fire. Our fire union is really old, so they have a long history. They have a lot of training.
They've been established a long time
Sorry,
ago.
you're correct. They've been established for a long time.
You just made all the firefighters mad. We're not old.
But so they have a long history. There's a lot of understanding there. They have a lot of knowledge base that we don't have because we don't deal with it every day that they do. So their disciplinary process and everything is slightly different from a regular employee. They're covered by their contract, by civil service, and by city policy, where an average employee is just covered by city policy. So there's a lot of different layers I'm learning as we go along. They all have a president that's elected from within the union that we deal with on most cases. A lot of the time, if a member comes in and they have a concern, their union representative sometimes will come with them. If the union approaches me, I do still talk to the management team of the division to make sure they understand what's going on, because sometimes there's more friction there because they're in negotiations or they're trying to change a policy, and so they both want HR's input. So I have to make sure that I communicate back to both parties, even if only one side asks the question.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. You have to be neutral then when it comes to the union negotiations and
Yeah. And it's hard because the unions are kind of in an interesting spot because we're looking at shifting how we pay employees here at the city, just the overall structure of our plan. And that's very hard to deal with because change, no one deals with it well. And this is one of the biggest changes you can make for employees that have worked here for 20 or 30 years. They've never worked under any other sort of pay structure. Our police department made big changes this year. They'll go into effect October 1st, and they're kind of piloting a program for what it could look like. But it is causing a lot of concern among employees. So we're doing a lot of outreach and talking to them. We have communications ready to go that walk them through how the change is going to happen.
well, kudos to the police department for being willing to step up and say, look, if we're going to make this change, let's do it. Let's see how it works and go from there. So
Yeah, they've been good to work with. A lot of changes this year. We hope that they're good ones for them.
Well, you're absolutely correct, Heather, and thank you for being here because HR is a complex mixture of a lot of different parts. One of the things you alluded to is that the benefits for the city employees is in your words is very good.
It is very good.
So I think it's important that when you're trying to make things equitable, that all those things come into the umbrella of evaluation.
They are.
My question then would be is on a lot of the evaluations we've done on compensation and such, it appears that most of the comparisons are done with other cities.
That's correct.
Why is it that we don't consider businesses within the area that would pull our employees away from the city or vice versa?
So Pokey's unique because we're not a huge metropolitan area, but yeah, we do have a thriving college. We have a lot of big businesses on our outskirts, especially the growth that we're seeing lately. When you're comparing to private company, so I come out of private sector. I mean, I've been flown to dinner to Vegas for dinner with the bank. Because, I mean, we can't offer those things as a city.
Right.
So when you sit down and you compare apples to apples, we have to at least make sure we're having apples, not to oranges. So our benefits are very good, but one thing that we have that local businesses cannot compete with is Percy. So our retirement plan is phenomenal. The city match is great. A lot of people don't understand how fast that builds up and the options that we provide. Like we have supplemental plans that they can sign up for. So when you sit down and you compare benefits, it's hard. So we're kind of on a high deductible plan here, but we buy down that amount for employees in their VEBA account, which is a savings that they can then take with them. So if you just compare, everyone calls things differently. So you might have a Granny Smith apple and I have a Red Delicious. It's very hard to make sure you're getting all the information just on how you ask a question. So one thing that we really can't offer is we can't offer like telecommuting. I mean, these are things that we can't compete with local businesses because we are centralized around the citizens, so we have to be here on site. So those are things that we can't compete with, but other cities can't either. That's why we compare directly to them.
Well, you alluded to Percy. It was a new area for me coming on the city council and being exposed to that. In fact, I had a member of the city tell me, he said, that was the best thing that ever happened to me because as a young man, I did not have the discipline to save. And so the real beauty of that is that every paycheck, there was X number of dollars taken out. I didn't have any say in that. And now that that this individual is looking forward to retirement, this individual is going to get a paycheck for the rest of his life. Where many people, a retirement plan is non-existent except beyond maybe a 401 or maybe stock options within some companies. So you're right, exactly right. It is a great plan for those people who work with the city and those other institutions that participate in that plan. So.
And I've found that a lot of city employees, we have a lot of long-term people here. These people are proud of what they do. They're proud of the fact that they worked for the city. They know if they go private market, they're going to make more. But there's something to be said about taking care of the place you live. And I think a lot of people here, they're proud of that and they're happy to say they work for the city. No, we're not cutting edge on pay, but we offer a well-rounded package, I think, that covers a lot of what employees need.
That's a very good point.
I think you've got to in order to do that, and I agree. Our employees, we've got great employees, and they are proud of what they do.
Yeah.
And how they do it. So what are some of the big projects that you're working on at HR, with HR right now?
So the biggest one we're dealing with is the city switching benefit vendors from Blue Cross to Aetna.
Okay.
Switching a benefit vendor is very hard because you have to educate all of your employees as to the new system. Beyond that, all the local doctors and pharmacies have to understand that they're maybe no longer in network. Aetna is a huge company, so most people that are covered, doctors that are in our plan now, will be in our plan going forward. Simple changes to the plan can have long-lasting effects. So we've had a lot of communication meetings on new options that we're providing or things that we think that you should look at. If you use the accident coverage a lot with Blue Cross, it's not covered with Aetna, so you need to look at a supplemental plan. But we all now also offer a wellness visit for vision, which is something we didn't offer before. So employees need to consider, if I don't wear glasses, do I still want to get vision insurance? So you have to help them sit down and walk through what all those costs will be. We're also implementing a new performance management system. We just finished up this year's evaluations, so we'll start on the new ones October 1st. The new system is designed to help managers manage more efficiently with less time constraints. So it teaches you how to manage an employee in 5 minutes a week or 10 minutes a month versus, we sit down twice a year and we hash through this horrible process that no one wants to do. And then the last big item is we're currently considering a shift in our pay. We currently are on a longevity system with steps. We're looking at shifting away from that. Longevity is kind of outdated. It's kind of hard on morale when the person sitting next to you who isn't doing as good a job is getting the same pay raise that you are. A pay-for-performance system is something we've looked at in the past, and we think we're kind of going to go with a hybrid between the two, but it's going to take a lot of work between management and the council to figure out if that'll be the course we want to take.
But that's something we haven't decided yet on what we're going to do with that, but we're definitely moving from Blue Cross to Aetna.
Yep.
That's a done deal.
That's a done deal. October 1st, we'll switch that vendor.
And also you mentioned the second thing you mentioned there, the longevity. That's one thing the police department said, look, if we're going to do that and go this route, we know it's going to take a lot of money up front. Let's move that way and see where we are.
Yeah, so longevity is pay based on how long you've been within the city. So if you'd been here so long, you get X number of dollars. We're trying to move away from that system overall with the city, but the police decided they would pilot for us. We've frozen their longevity, so we're not taking that benefit away from them, that pay. It's now included in their salary. But it makes for a more transparent process. So when you ask someone, how much does a sergeant make, we can tell them exactly what a sergeant makes, rather than, well, this is their hourly rate, plus this is the longevity scale they could be at. So it makes the process more open to citizens. So if they called and asked, we could give them a straight answer, and we know that's exactly what the person makes per hour.
That sounds great. And then your evaluation, your performance evaluation. I love the idea of going to that performance evaluation where you literally sit down with them once a month and take 5 minutes, and you don't have to wait for 6 months or a year before you go over something that happened October 3rd. Now it's August of the next year, and we're trying to remember how it was and what it was, and it's tough to correct something a year late.
Well, it's hard as an employee if you don't understand what your manager's expectations are. So by sitting down with the employee and figuring out what their actual job entails and what things you would like them to work on or growth you'd like to see in the position, it allows them to be successful because they have some sort of measurement that they can gauge their success against.
Well, I think that's pretty important. And then pay for performance
Okay.
is a whole new ball game, and it's something I'm assuming, in fact, I'm fairly confident that the City Council will be sitting down this fall and early winter, that trying to discuss it, figure it out, and trying to find out what we've got, where we are, and what we need to do.
Councilman Orr and I have actually had quite a conversation about pay for performance already. It is a big shift in what our current practice is, but I think it's moving towards that is the right move for the city. It allows you to better pay your employees, reward your top performers. Not that everyone's not eligible for a raise, but the person's that's struggling or might have moved into a new position and isn't quite at par, they wouldn't be eligible for that raise, where the person going above and beyond would get a little bit more. It's better for morale if you feel like you're getting a return on the amount of energy you're putting in. And as a manager, it gives you more control over how you actually pay your employees, which is something our managers really are looking forward to.
No, absolutely, and this is, I think, what's important to state here is that as a council member, I appreciate the mayor taking the lead in this, is because you mentioned that change is difficult.
It is very difficult.
And so the mayor saw that there was several areas of change that were trying to be implemented, and it just got so overwhelming because just switching health insurance vendors is the magnitude is almost beyond understanding. Then to try to deal with longevity and pay for performance. So it was felt best by the leadership that we slow down and
it's a lot easier if you take one
eatable
piece.
bites,
Yes.
I guess, so that we can do this right, rather than, and again, I'm going to apologize to all the city employees here, because this last year with the budget plan, as we had to really work on that and work on benefits and everything else, it was not the council or the mayor's intent to cause stress and anxiety. I guess that happens in any business, whether you're city or not. But again, please keep in mind that this was done with the best interest of the city employees in mind. It may not come across like that all the time, but that's where the leadership and the council, I believe, want to go with this, and we appreciate HR of taking that, especially with the performance evaluation. Whether it's stellar, or like you mentioned, somebody that's moved into a new position and they may be struggling a little bit. This plan allows the supervisor to assist them to accelerate their understanding and learning curve so that they can perform better in the role that they're assigned in the city. So we appreciate all that.
Absolutely. And you know, Mike's very kind saying, you know, the mayor, but this was the entire council and the mayor, and it wasn't easy. It was a tough year, and I think we made a lot of people mad. And so I appreciate you saying that. The city employees, we've got some great employees, and I don't want them ever to feel like we don't believe that, because we do. And you do a lot of work behind the scenes, calming everybody down, and so we appreciate what you do there as well. Real quickly, why don't we talk a little bit about job openings? How many job openings do we have in the city right now? Do you?
We actually don't have a lot. We had a bunch that closed last Friday, so we're now reviewing those positions. We have 6 variable hour or part-time positions open. So those would be seasonal or just part-time during a sports season. But we do have 1 half-time position that just opened up. It's for an administrative assistant at the library. So this position would work less than 30 hours a week, and it would be mostly weekends and nights, but that is benefited. We're currently reviewing a lot of other positions that we have open that we haven't hired yet, but we're no longer accepting applications for those.
Okay. If you're interested in working for this city, though, what do you do?
So we do an online application process. If you go to the city's website, which is www.pocatello.us, there's an icon in the bottom left-hand screen that says job opportunities. It looks like a briefcase icon. Go ahead and click on that, and it'll show you all of our current openings, and then you can apply electronically. Once you've signed up for the system, it will hold all your information in there. So if you want to apply at a later time, you don't have to re-enter everything. We then route all that information electronically between managers and HR. So we don't have a bunch of resumes laying around of people's personal information. We keep those all electronically now.
So if I apply for a sanitation position as a mechanic in the sanitation department, and a sanitation or a mechanic position opens up in the street department, for example, will my application just automatically be referred to the streets, or do I need to reapply?
You would need to reapply. We don't roll applications. We ask that the individuals reapply, because with each department and each position there are slightly different requirements. Some people, they only want to work in a specific division, so they only are interested in applying for that. We do store everything electronically, though, like I said, so you can adjust your cover letter if you would like to submit one, but all of your application information will remain the same. It just lets us know you're actually interested in the position so that we're not rolling a stagnant pool of applicants into an active job search.
So if I go in and fill out an application, and then I want to apply for a second job, I go in, my application will still come up
It will.
under my name, and I'll be able to just move it in.
That's right.
So it's a fairly easy process.
It's a
at
very
that
easy
point.
process.
What if you don't know how to use a computer very well, and you're really nervous about a computer? Is there any way to...
So you have a couple options. We have a kiosk down at HR. We can help you do the application. Or I know that the public library has a lot of computers and they're very good with customer service, so they would be happy to help you learn how to do that as well.
So you could get help if you're looking
Yes,
for it.
HR or the library.
Okay, that sounds good. And what exactly does the process or the hiring process look like? If I apply for a job, what do I expect? Just to sit there and wait for a phone call, or do I... will there be an interview process, and what does that interview process look like if that's the case?
So I'll use a couple different examples. We just hired in HR recently. So we had about 50 applicants in. We whittled that down to the top level that we wanted to interview. So that was our first round of interviews. We interviewed 8 people, and then we sat down as a team and decided who our top 2 were, and then we brought those top 2 back in for a second interview. Once we had met as a team and decided who we wanted to hire, we then contacted the applicants and let them know what the decision was, and then we sent out emails to everyone to let them know what had happened. So crime analyst is one that the police department just filled. Some of our positions require a secondary test, like a typing test or an actual in-house test that they take. We just did that for dispatch. We actually sit down. The police department had people from their detectives division who did their interviews. We brought the applicants in. Some were internal, some were external. People off-site, we offered a Skype or a phone interview, and then on-site people came in. After that, they went to a second round interview that involved a presentation. So everyone tailors their interview process to the actual what you'll be doing within the job function. So those are things that each department handles individually.
If I was to apply for the HR position, though, will I have only HR people in there, or will I have other people as well? And
So with HR, we had it all internal because we are an internal department.
Okay.
Someone from HR sits on most job interview boards. We sit down, we help them with questions, we sit in to make sure that everything's going okay, and if they have any questions about the city or policy, we're right there to answer those. A lot of the time when we hire a department head, you have multiple divisions that are in on those interviews, so you have representation from different groups that will interact with that person. But for an entry-level position, no, it's usually just department specific. Upper-level positions, you usually do have multiple divisions who are sitting in on that interview.
so an entry level, am I going to be interviewed by one person or 5?
Well, we try to keep it below 3, but sometimes we're not successful. Sometimes you could be in for an administrative assistant position, and I swear staring at a whole department, but we're trying to whittle that number back down to around 3.
Okay. Because it's pretty intimidating for somebody to come into an interview process with everybody staring at them. You got that hot light on them, and you don't give them a drink of water.
I know, they look all nervous.
Yeah. No, it's...
We try not to do that very often.
Not very often. We try to make it very user-friendly, actually.
Yeah.
And so, well, Heather, half hour's up. It's amazing once again, but thank you very much for coming in, for spending your evening with us away from your family. We really appreciate it, and I'm excited to have you as our HR director, so thank you.
Oh, well, thanks.
Thanks, Heather. We appreciate you.